You used to host dinner parties every weekend. Now you'd rather sip tea quietly by your window. What changed? If you're over 60, maybe you've asked yourself this question. Or maybe someone else did, perhaps a concerned relative or an old friend. You don't come around like you used to. They say it with a smile, but behind their words is a hint of concern or guilt. But let's be honest, this shift isn't about being cold or antisocial. It's about evolving, about understanding your needs, your energy, your peace. In this video, we're not just exploring why many seniors prefer not to visit others' homes as often anymore. We're diving into the deep psychological, emotional, and even health-related reasons behind this change. And if you stick with me till the end, I'll also share a few personal stories, some heartwarming, some cautionary, that might just make you nod and say, "That's exactly how I feel." Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you care about aging wisely, healthfully, and with purpose. We're building a place where wisdom feels at home, just like you. The silent shift from sociability to solitude. Let's start by debunking a myth: solitude is loneliness. Absolutely not. In fact, solitude, when chosen, not forced, can be one of the most healing and empowering states of being. According to the National Institute on Aging, the difference between loneliness and solitude is clear. One is painful, the other can be restorative. Why it happens. In youth, socializing feels essential. Parties, visits, spontaneous coffee dates. It's how we explore identity, build friendships, and understand the world. But as we age, we've already walked those paths. We've lived through celebrations and betrayals, comforts and confrontations. So naturally, we start prioritizing quality over quantity, peace over noise, truth over small talk. Let me put it this way: if your soul was a house, you've spent decades decorating it. You've learned what furniture feels right, what colors suit your mood, and what clutter stresses you out. You no longer let just anyone walk through the door with muddy shoes. This transition isn't selfish. It's sacred self-preservation. A real-life story of Mrs. Evelyn from Arizona. Mrs. Evelyn is 74, a retired school teacher living in Tucson. For most of her life, she was the life of the party, baking for block events, hosting Thanksgiving dinners for extended family, even organizing monthly book clubs. But in her mid-60s, something shifted. She still loved her friends, but the energy it took to host or visit just didn't feel worth the recovery time anymore. I noticed after every gathering I felt depleted, not energized. I'd come home with a sore back, ringing ears, and a slight headache. Was I getting old, maybe? But I think I just started listening to what my body had been whispering for years. Now Evelyn prefers calm meetups at the park or short chats over the phone. She says solitude gave me space to think, reflect, and even heal some emotional wounds I didn't realize I'd carried for decades. The emotional load of visiting. One of the most overlooked aspects of visiting others, especially in older age, is the emotional effort it demands. 1. You're not just visiting, you're performing. Think about it. When you go to someone's home, especially if they're not a close relative, you're automatically playing a role, the guest. That comes with being on your best behavior, watching what you say, avoiding sensitive topics, pretending to enjoy dishes you might not like, keeping track of time so you don't overstay your welcome. It's a lot of mental juggling. Now imagine doing that while managing back pain, digestive issues, or medication schedules. No wonder many seniors say it's just easier to stay home. 2. Not all invitations are genuine. A sad truth. Many seniors learn the hard way is that not everyone who says drop by anytime really means it. In a 2022 AARP study on social connection among older adults, nearly 37% said they had attended gatherings where they felt unwelcome or uncomfortable. That's not just awkward, it's emotionally damaging. In the video, a story is shared about Uncle Ma who misread a classmate's polite invitation. After a few cheerful visits, he was told the classmate's wife and kids were unhappy. The message, "You're not really welcome here." That kind of rejection hurts more in old age. We no longer have the same resilience to bounce back as when we were young. It lingers. Está awkward. If you're someone who's reduced the number of social visits you make, that's not a flaw, it's wisdom. You've learned to conserve your emotional energy to prioritize comfort and to make space for people who truly value your presence. That's not antisocial, that's pro-self. Solitude isn't emptiness, it's recovery. In younger years, being alone often feels like being left out. But after 60, especially into our 70s or 80s, being alone can feel like a soft, warm silence. Not the silence of neglect, but the silence of peace. Dr. Marka Gronin, a geriatric psychiatrist with the Miami Jewish Health Systems and contributor to Harvard Health Publishing, says that many older adults benefit from intentional solitude, which allows for emotional regulation, memory processing, and even spiritual clarity. You see, aging naturally draws our attention inward. We reflect more. We become less interested in social status and more interested in what matters most: meaningful relationships, health, and peace of mind. So instead of seeking external stimulation, we seek internal grounding. That's why even a simple act like tending a garden, journaling, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea can become profoundly fulfilling in old age. No need for crowded rooms. Just the company of your own thoughts and maybe a loved one nearby. Loneliness versus intentional solitude. Here's the difference. Loneliness is when you want connection and don't have it. Solitude is when you choose space because you've had enough of the noise. Unfortunately, society often confuses the two and tells older adults they should get out more. But what if getting out more causes more anxiety than joy? For many, especially those with mobility issues, hearing loss, or caregiving burdens, visiting someone's home isn't fun. It's stressful. And stress, according to the National Institute on Aging, can speed up cognitive decline. So again, we come back to the same wisdom: just because we can visit doesn't mean we must. The emotional collisions of visiting. Let's return to a story from the video, one that many older women may relate to. Ms. Wong was a vibrant woman. After retiring, she joined a square dancing group, made friends, and participated in rainy day meetups, where members would take turns hosting one another in their homes. On the surface, it sounded ideal community movement joy. But one day, during a casual visit to another member's home, she made an offhand comment about her daughter-in-law not helping out enough around the house. She didn't mean harm, maybe it was frustration or just filling silence with chatter. Unfortunately, someone from the group repeated her words. The comment made its way back to her daughter-in-law, twisted, exaggerated, and totally out of context. The result, her son scolded her. Her daughter-in-law became cold and distant. Ms. Wong was heartbroken. Her sanctuary became a battlefield. That one sentence said in what she thought was a safe environment led to lasting emotional damage. Why stories like Ms. Wong's are so common. In older age, there's a powerful desire for connection. But with connection comes risk, especially in environments filled with gossip, comparison, or misunderstanding. Many seniors are extroverted by nature, but over time they learn the hard truth. The more you talk, the more likely your words will be twisted. The more you open your door, the more likely you'll open yourself to conflict. That's why many now choose to dance in the park, then return home quietly. Community. Yes. Intimacy with caution. Vasubigajira comparison is the thief of joy, especially in retirement. Here's another hidden danger of frequent visits: economic comparison. Let's be honest. Even among friends, people compare homes, furniture, children's successes, and even the quality of the tea being served. For some, these things are lighthearted. But for others, especially seniors living on a fixed income, visiting someone who's more financially comfortable can stir up feelings of inadequacy or shame. And the opposite is true too. Seniors with more money often feel obligated to host better, serve more, or share more, which creates pressure and exhaustion. According to research from the National Council on Aging, emotional well-being among older adults is directly tied to feelings of dignity and self-worth. Repeated reminders of economic disparity, even subtle ones, can erode that. That's why many choose the neutral ground of parks, cafes, or community centers when connecting. No one's home is judged. Everyone is on equal footing. Holiday loneliness versus healthy boundaries. The video makes a keen observation during holidays like Lunar New Year or Christmas. The once common tradition of visiting neighbors has faded. People now stay home, watch TV, scroll on their phones, or rest. Some see this as a sign that society is breaking down. But from a different perspective, it might be a healthy evolution. Older adults today are finally listening to their needs. They're not forcing joy. They're not overextending themselves for tradition. They're saying, "I'll celebrate on my terms." The hustle of hosting or visiting, especially during holidays, often brings more burden than blessing. As one 82-year-old veteran once said during an interview with AARP, "I've spent my life chasing the joy of others. Now I chase my peace." Practical advice for staying connected without visiting homes. Just because you reduce visits doesn't mean you isolate. There's a big difference. Here are 5 practical strategies from reputable sources like the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and Senior Planet One. Use technology with intention. Set up regular video calls with grandchildren. Join Zoom discussion groups hosted by your local library or senior center. 2. Meet outside the home coffee shops. Public parks or community centers are fantastic for short, low-pressure interactions. 3. Establish boundaries with love. It's okay to say, "I don't host anymore." Offer alternatives like meeting at a restaurant or talking over the phone. 4. Keep a connection calendar. Once a week, reach out to one friend or family member. Even a short call can keep bonds strong. 5. Practice internal connection. Prayer, meditation, journaling. These are ways to feel connected to your own spirit, which is equally important. When solitude is misunderstood, the pain of being judged for changing. There's a quiet grief that many older adults carry, not because of disease or disability, but because the people around them misread their boundaries. They don't say it out loud, but they feel it deeply. You see, solitude in older age is often misinterpreted by others as rejection, bitterness, depression, or even a sign of mental decline. But let's be clear, choosing peace over participation doesn't mean you've lost your spark. It means you're finally listening to your inner voice, one that no longer wants to shout in crowded rooms or impress guests with fancy snacks. The pain of being called cold. In the original video, we meet Mr. Bly, once a warm, generous man who regularly invited friends into his home. But now in his 50s, he prefers to keep his circle small and his environment quiet. And what do people say? "You've changed. You've become so distant. You're not the same Bly." But the truth is, Bly hasn't changed. He's evolved. He's grown into his peace. And this is a very common story. According to a 2023 AARP study on emotional wellness in seniors, more than 50% of respondents over age 65 said they intentionally withdrew from certain friendships because they no longer felt aligned with their values or energy. This isn't selfish, it's wise. Family misunderstandings. Sometimes the judgment doesn't come from friends, it comes from family. A daughter might say, "Dad, you used to be so social. Why don't you visit Uncle Ron anymore?" A son might worry, "Mom, you're always alone. Are you okay?" But what they don't see is the cost of visiting, the physical toll of getting ready, the emotional labor of small talk, the guilt of overstaying. And so older adults stay quiet. To avoid hurting their kids, they push themselves into gatherings they no longer enjoy. This is where we as a society must evolve. We must stop equating activity with wellness and start respecting the different shapes wellness takes in later life, including stillness, solitude, and simplicity. When visiting is the right choice. To be clear, this isn't a blanket statement against visiting. Sometimes a visit is just what the heart needs. A surprise knock on the door from an old friend, a gentle reunion with a cousin you haven't seen in decades, a short, sweet chat over tea with someone who truly listens. These moments still matter deeply. So how do you know when visiting someone or receiving a visit is the right thing to do? Use this three-part filter. 1. Energy check. Are you feeling energized at the thought of the visit or drained your body knows before your mind does? 2. Mutuality. Is the visit based on mutual care or obligation? If it feels like a duty, it's probably not necessary. 3. Afterglow. Think about how you typically feel after seeing that person. Lighter or heavier? That tells you everything. Visiting should be a gift, not a transaction. And if the gift feels too heavy to give, it's okay to hold it back. Share a grandfather's story, the art of letting go with grace. Let me tell you about George. George was 78, a retired carpenter in Wisconsin. For years, he hosted Sunday dinners for his grown children and their families. Big roasts, homemade pies. He loved the noise, the chaos, the laughter. But over time, it got harder. His hands hurt from arthritis. His energy dipped. His hearing faded. The joyful clatter became a stressful roar. Still, he didn't want to disappoint anyone, so he kept going. One day, his daughter arrived early and found him sitting alone in the kitchen, tears in his eyes. "Dad, what's wrong?" He didn't answer at first. Then finally he whispered, "I love you all so much, but I just don't want to host anymore." She hugged him and said, "Then don't. Let us take care of you now." From that day on, the family rotated hosting. George still came, but only when he wanted to. Sometimes he stayed home, and no one judged him. He said it was the most free he'd felt in years. Creating new rituals without pressure. One of the most beautiful parts of aging is the chance to redefine what tradition means. Who says visits have to be in person? Write letters again, the old-fashioned kind. Start a family WhatsApp group to share recipes, prayers, or photos. Host a once-a-month porch visit where friends drop by but don't stay long. Arrange outdoor tea time with neighbors in the front yard, no mess, no expectations. It's not the form of connection that matters, it's the intention behind it. Connection doesn't require proximity, it requires presence. The power of saying no and meaning it. One of the greatest gifts older adults can give themselves is the permission to say no without guilt. "No, I don't want to host this year." No, I won't make the 2-hour drive. No, I'm not feeling up to it. These aren't rejections of love, they're expressions of self-respect. Saying no frees up space for saying yes to rest, to peace, to the people and moments that truly nourish you. Final reflection: the peace of growing older. As we grow older, we begin to realize something profound. It's not how many people love you that brings peace, it's how gently you've learned to love yourself. Solitude chosen intentionally is not a punishment, it's a sanctuary. And sometimes the best gift we can give the world and ourselves is our honest presence, even if it's in smaller, quieter ways. So whether you choose to visit host call or simply sit in stillness, let it come from a place of freedom. Not fear, not guilt, not pressure, just love. Quiet, kind, patient love. How to set healthy boundaries with adult children without feeling guilty. As we grow older, one of the most difficult challenges isn't physical decline or financial pressure. It's learning to say enough even to the people we love the most, our own children. You raised them. You carried their worries. You gave them your strength, your time, your youth. But now it's time to care for yourself. And that often starts with one powerful word: no. Common situations where boundaries are needed. 1. Unannounced visits. Your adult child pops in just for a minute but stays 2 hours, talks loudly, leaves messes, or brings the grandkids without asking. It's okay to say, "I love seeing you, but I'd appreciate it if we could plan our visits. I need more rest these days." 2. Asking for help without limits. They want you to babysit, run errands, or house sit constantly sometimes without considering your own energy or plans. It's okay to say, "I'd love to help once in a while, but I also need time to take care of my own health." 3. Criticizing your lifestyle choices. They ask, "Why don't you go out more?" You're isolating. It's okay to say, "What feels right for me today is different from what used to. Please trust that I'm content." Remember, you're not doing less because you don't love them. You're doing what's right for your season of life. Boundaries don't mean walls. They mean doorways that open when you choose, not when others demand. Bakkatik. Science speaks: why a quieter life boosts health. You don't just feel better when life slows down, your body does too. Let's explore what modern science says about solitude and aging. 1. Lower cortisol, less stress, longer life. A landmark study from the National Institute on Aging (NIA) found that seniors who reduce over-socialization and schedule clutter experience significantly lower cortisol levels, the hormone linked to stress, inflammation, and heart disease. In other words, less pressure, longer, stronger life. 2. More quiet time, better sleep. According to the Mayo Clinic, overstimulation in older adults, like frequent visits, loud environments, or social fatigue, contributes to poor sleep quality, especially in those over 65. On the other hand, seniors who adopt peaceful evening routines and maintain light social calendars often experience fewer nighttime awakenings, lower blood pressure, improved mood, and mental clarity. 3. Loneliness versus solitude. Know the difference. Dr. Vivek Murthy, the U.S. Surgeon General, has been outspoken about the dangers of loneliness, a lack of meaningful connection. But solitude, that's different. Solitude, when chosen, supports mental reflection, emotional processing, creative thinking, spiritual growth. As Harvard's Healthy Aging Report notes, the difference between loneliness and solitude is purpose. One drains you, the other renews you. So don't let society confuse the two. How to communicate your needs. clearly and kindly. You may worry about hurting feelings when you decline visits or step back from certain traditions. Here are simple, respectful ways to communicate your changing preferences. Try this. I cherish our relationship. I'm just moving into a more peaceful season of life. Please know it's not personal, it's necessary for me. Or, this I've realized I function best with quiet routines and more space. I'd love to connect in ways that feel easier for both of us, like short phone calls or coffee out. The people who truly care about you will understand. And if they don't, that's their lesson, not your burden. To the hidden cost of always hosting, let's pause and tell another story. Mary Ann's hosting habit. Mary Ann, 74, was the family matriarch. Every Thanksgiving, Easter, and birthday, her house was the hub. People said she made the holidays happen, but no one noticed the swollen ankles, the headaches, the way she had to nap for days after each gathering. One winter, after an especially loud and chaotic Christmas, she collapsed from exhaustion and had to be hospitalized for dehydration and stress. That's when her son finally said, "We never meant to burden you. We just thought you liked it." She whispered, "I did, but I can't anymore." From then on, they started a new tradition, potlucks in the local community center. Fewer dishes, shared cleanup. And Mary Ann. She brought her famous lemon pie and rested after. There is no shame in saying this is too much. There is only strength. In the emotional toll of being too available. Being endlessly accessible can take a toll that many don't see. You begin to feel like you owe everyone your time. You resent the lack of appreciation. You feel invisible in your own home, and worst of all, you forget how to be alone without guilt. Let me reassure you, you have nothing to prove. You've already done more than enough, raised children, built careers, helped friends, served others. Now is the time to come home to yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. Realistic tips for protecting your peace. Here are some practical strategies to protect your energy and still maintain meaningful connections. 1. Create visiting hours. Let friends and family know you're available during certain times, only like a gentle office schedule. 2. Use soft no phrases. "Oh, I'd love to, but I have to rest." "Oh, I'm keeping things low-key these days." "Oh, can we plan something shorter instead?" 3. Host light, not heavy. If you still want to invite people over, serve tea and snacks, not full meals. Set a clear start and end time. Don't clean the whole house, they're here to see you, not your floor. 4. Practice the 2-hour rule. Visits over 2 hours can be draining. Politely excuse yourself if needed, even mid-visit. 5. Schedule recovery time after a gathering. Build in 1 to 2 days of no plans. Your mind and body will thank you. I want to close with one more story. Eleanor and the Willow Tree. Eleanor, 85, lived alone in a small cottage near a park in Oregon. Every afternoon, she sat under the same willow tree, sipping tea and writing letters. One day, a young woman walked by and asked, "Aren't you lonely out here by yourself?" Eleanor smiled and replied, "Oh no, dear, I'm not alone. I'm with the person I spent a lifetime trying to get to know me." The young woman sat with her that day. And many days after. She said Eleanor taught her more about life than anyone else ever had. Sometimes the most impactful people are the quietest. Dear friend, if you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for honoring your season of life. Thank you for seeking peace, not popularity. Thank you for remembering that love can be soft, that joy doesn't have to be loud, and that aging is not decline. it's refinement. You are not fading, you are becoming. If this message resonated with you, please don't leave without doing these 3 simple things. 1. Like this video to let us know this content matters. 2. Share it with someone you love, especially if they're struggling with aging or boundaries. 3. Subscribe to our channel where wisdom walks with you every step of the way. You're not alone here, and you never have to be again. Until next time, be well, be wise, and be kind to yourself.